Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are going to go deeper into how we can use technology to move our ministry forward, and we're going to be hearing from Elder Anthony Simpson from Mount Carmel Church of God in Christ. I'm going to go ahead and allow him to lead. You'll see some slides on your screen if you want to take notes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Glad to see all of you. It is a blessing to be here and to be part of this Kansas City's jurisdictional meeting and education piece. My name is Elder Anthony Simpson. I attend Mount Carmel Church of God in Christ with Pastor Jason Sims. But Kansas East is my home. I grew up in Kansas East. So it is an honor to be here. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about hardware. Live streaming has really come to the forefront in technology, churches. It has been our way of staying connected to our membership. And so I want to talk to you a little bit tonight briefly, but I want to make sure I give you an opportunity to ask questions. But I just want to talk to you about hardware. How do we get started? Where do we even start from? So one of the, see if I can advance my slide here. So one of the first questions you want to ask is, what do I want to accomplish with my live stream? Basically how you answer that is when we're full grown, what do I want my stream to look like? Okay, so we want to always think, what is our end goal, and work backwards from there. There are some pieces of hardware that they can grow with us. There are some pieces of hardware that we may have to say, because where we want to go, we have to go ahead and get the full gambit. And there's some hardware that you can just grow as you grow. Okay, so, but the best place to start when it comes to your stream is, what is it that you want your end goal to look like? Because there's ways that we can incrementally get to that location or to get to that destination without breaking the bank. Okay, and technology does not have to break the bank. I found this little cartoon I thought was kind of funny. Giving is up at First Church since they adopted restaurant tipping guidelines. 15% tithe required for families of 5 or more. What do we always say that we're limited by? And that's budget, budget, budget. Right? We are stewards of the money that comes to the church. We want to make sure that we are spending money wisely and in the right locations. So again, this is really more about putting together the plan, sitting down and being intentional about where you want your technology to go and how to get there. So we're going to talk a little bit about what those options are. So again, your first question, what is my budget? So you want to first, again, put the plan together, okay? Be realistic. If you got a church of 100 members, then planning your technology like the Potter's house, that may not be what our goal needs to be right now. We want to look at a couple of things. What is your building structure? Is it an older facility that may have some limitations? And if you, for instance, plan on building, then you can budget for newer technology in the new facility. So again, the first piece is making the plan, then deciding, okay, what is my budget? Now I will say this, and this was very interesting to me, and I share this. Bishop Sims, before he passed, he built our facility in 2014. And when we were planning the audio and visual at our facility, he said, hey, I got a budget of this amount. And I said, okay. Well, we went out to Charlotte, North Carolina to meet with a company called Audio Ethics. And they're the ones that ultimately designed and installed our system. And when we got out there, the gentleman who ran the company says, in order to get what it is that you're wanting, your budget has to double. So we started off with a budget, but the experts will come in and will say, okay, with that budget, you can do these things, or you may only be able to do these things. But if your ultimate goal is to do A, B, and C, then you have to, there's not a lot of wiggle room for hardware. Okay, so a 50-inch television is going to cost what a 50-inch television costs. And I also throw in that, when it comes to technology, you get what you pay for. Some things you can find some deals and find some ways to cut costs, but on some things, some important things, you just cannot cut costs and expect to have a good quality stream. So the next question is, do I want to stream live only? And both these next two, will I use the system for other projects? The reason why this is important is if your system is going to be stationary, then there are some things that you can do versus, well, let's say we want to stream in our sanctuary, but I also want to be able to move that system to our fellowship hall. Well, then you have to really adjust what kind of system that you build, because not everything is mobile, not everything is movable. So these are the kind of questions that you want to really be asking yourself, because the last thing you want to do is put a lot of money into a system and then it can't meet all the needs that you have. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So yeah, we don't want to devise or to create a system that then becomes a problem because it doesn't fit in the overall scheme. So again, it goes back to that planning. What is it that you want it to do? So does it need to be mobile? Does it need to serve more than one purpose? And there are ways to do that. And again, we want to do those things with intention. Okay. Um, so when it comes to hardware, your first piece are going to be the cameras. Now, there are really three different industry standards for live streaming. Now, a lot of people started off on phones and tablets, which, to be honest with you, is fine. Um, there is nothing wrong with using a phone or a tablet. But if you've seen live streams, you can tell the difference between someone running a phone or a tablet versus someone using a higher end camera. Now, with that said, um, I have an iPhone and it shoots in 4K. So that is a tremendously good camera for it to be a mobile phone. But if you're going to use a phone, again, be intentional. Make sure that you're using a tripod stand and have a holder for it. Having somebody sit on the second row and hold the camera can be disorienting for someone watching the camera moving during your live stream. So a person can man that camera, but it needs to be on its stand so it's stable and it's not moving a lot. Okay. Your next option are DSLR cameras. Those basically are cameras that can be used for photography or for videography. So they look just like a picture, a photo camera. Okay. This picture that's kind of in the background on the slide, that's a DSLR camera. Okay. And those can shoot up to 4K and higher. The picture at the bottom is a broadcast camera. So it's a really high-end broadcast camera. You will see cameras like that at your large mega churches and your larger facilities. Those again are, but those cameras right there, a broadcast camera can start at $17,000, $18,000 for a single camera. But again, those kind of cameras might have communication pieces that are built into the camera. So when your volunteers operating that camera, they can plug a headset in and communicate with the person doing the broadcast in the back. The last one that I have up there, what I just realized I don't have a picture of, and I apologize, is a PTZ camera. PTZ camera stands for pan, tilt, zoom. Those are remote cameras that can move side to side, up and down, and zoom in and out completely remotely. You will find that in a lot of installations, and those are nice when you don't have a huge volunteer pool to pull from, because one person can operate 2, 3, 4 cameras from one single remote piece of equipment. They can switch cameras. and it uses a joystick to pan, tilt, and zoom. And that's a really great option when you want to leave a small footprint for your volunteer pool. So a lot of times it's hard to find volunteers, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. But that's the other thing to consider. You know, you may have the budget to put into all this equipment, but you got to think about, well, who's going to run this equipment? Okay. Um, I have always been blessed to use youth for volunteers. Um, and I got a slide to kind of allude to that, but it really fits here. If your volunteer pool is uncomfortable with the technology, okay, or they're really timid when it comes to the technology, you may have some of the best equipment, but if your volunteer pool cannot operate that equipment, then you're also going to have an issue. Okay, so you want your again your plan to be intentional. Um, we've got to consider the budget. We've got to consider where it is that we want to go, and ultimately, who is going to be operating that equipment. Do I have the kind of volunteer pool that can get that done? And so that's that piece. So again, you know, you see this young man operating, it's a broadcast camera. This is what you might see on a set of NBC News or, you know, a large church. I mean, these cameras are quite complicated. I mean, they can be fairly easy to learn. This one has, for instance, these grips on the handles that control zoom in, zoom out, and then he can move the camera up and down. He has a headset to talk to whoever's running the broadcast. That's an extremely sophisticated system. And again, that's something that as you're looking to create a system, you want to make sure that, am I creating something that nobody's going to be able to understand or to touch? So you want to do those kind of things in mind as to, you know, who are the people that I'm going to pull into this ministry to work. And I've always found people, anybody who's interested in technology, and youth are really good because they understand technology. It comes easy for them, and it gives them something to do to be part of the service. Last piece of software that's really critical when you talk about live streaming, and that is your computer, right? So desktop versus PC. There are two very critical things to keep in mind when talking about building a system. The first one is graphics processing, okay? I know that sounds complicated, but it's essentially your computer, any computer, has a processor in it, okay? So whether you have a laptop, a desktop, even a tablet or your phone, those all have processors. That is the basically what does the work on the computer, okay? When you introduce video, so video editing, video production, now that requires a term called encoding, okay? So that is your computer is doing work, your processor does work in order to open up programs, to run software, so on and so forth. But video requires it's a separate processor, and that's called either a graphics card or graphics processor, okay? And the reason why this is important is, generally speaking, on desktops, it is a lot easier to upgrade, to change out, to alter graphics on a desktop. Okay, that's a tower that you can open up. Generally, most tower computers have expansion slots or slots on the inside that you can start off with one graphics card, and if you need more, you can take that out and put another one in. You don't have that capability with a laptop. Generally, what you get is what you get, and you cannot, in large part, expand those or change those out. So when you're considering desktop versus PC, if we're talking about streaming, you know, it can be done on a PC, but generally you want to do that with a desktop, especially if you want the ability to grow, right? So you can start off with a processor that will handle your needs now, but if you know you start off with some basic cameras and eventually you move to 4K cameras, 4K is going to need much more power, which means it needs a bigger processor, which means now you've got to upgrade your equipment, and it's a lot easier to upgrade a single card in a desktop versus upgrading an entire laptop, because that laptop will not handle what it is that you're trying to do. So your choice in desktop versus PC is really driven by, you know, the software and your overall goals. If you're going to start at one place and you're not going to grow, or not, I don't want to say not grow, but this is where you want to be, then you can probably get away with a laptop. There are other ways to do that, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds, because there are machines that handle the encoding and the video processing that do not rely on the computer at all, and you can use a 15-year-old laptop to do that. But again, that hardware costs a little bit more because it's the one doing the work. So there are these switches called ATEM switches that all of the signals go into it. It does all the processing, and then it just sends a final product to the computer to stream. So that's kind of what the hardware pieces are really, your computer system, what is used to stream, and your cameras. And the nice thing is that there are a lot of options. You do not have to break the bank. You know, you can get started extremely reasonably if you are not. It does not take very much at all to get a live stream started. And I'll say this, and we're getting ready to take questions. Understand that this is pivotal. Ministry is not just about the people that walk into the doors of your facility. It is about the people that can be reached that may not ever step foot in your church. There are people that, you know, we keep analytics for our stream, and I've seen people from Norway, people from Sweden, people from Puerto Rico that watch our stream on a regular basis. They might not ever set foot in your building, but by providing live streaming, your ministry can reach farther than maybe you've ever imagined. And you can create programs to take in virtual members. Do not think small. And again, it doesn't take much to get started, but we have a unique opportunity to reach people in a way that traditionally we as a church may not have really thought before until this pandemic happened. And I encourage every ministry, because listen, if every one of us stands on a corner, it's still not enough to reach everyone that's lost. We're not competing with anybody by every single one of us having a live stream. There is someone that God has set aside for your ministry, for your church to be heard, and it's vital that we use this opportunity to reach beyond the four walls. So I thank you for your time. I'm going to give us times to ask any questions.